Thank you, Reverend Gina, and again, good morning, everybody. It is such a joy to be speaking with you today after having been a part of this amazing community of love and light for something over 2 decades now. Well, just because I've been here for over 2 decades, it doesn't talk about how long we've known each other.
Okay, perfect.
It's mutually exclusive. We'll go with that, right? And as I was thinking about what I was going to say in preparing this message, I was struck by some very powerful lessons that I've learned in just the last 5 years, but that had been growing, I think, in me for a long time prior to that. And this opening might sound a little bit strange, but bear with me. I think back to a time back, and I'm in lower elementary school, maybe 3rd grade or something like that, and it's English class. And our assignment is we're learning how to write a formal letter. And in the rather ancient, falling apart English book that we were using, they went through and they labeled all the different parts of a formal letter. And the one bit of the one label that really just always struck me as funny, I don't know why, it struck my 3rd grade brain as being humorous, was the very end of the letter, right above the signature. And they labeled that the complimentary close. And that makes sense, right? Because, at the end of a letter, especially if you are asking for something in the letter, I guess, you need to really show some genuine regard for the person that you're writing to as you wrap things up, right? And so that's where you put in the, best wishes, take care, all of that. And for whatever reason, that whole thing stuck with me for a long time because, in case you haven't figured it out, I'm old, right? So, flash forward many years to March of 2020. And in the United States, we were just discovering this very frightening possibility known as COVID-19. And we received an urgent message from our administration. I'm a college professor. I teach at Long Beach City College. And we were told, I think as many folks in many other institutions and businesses in Southern California were told, well, so there's this COVID-19 thing you may have heard about. And we're not worried about it. We think that it's going to come and go. It's going to quickly pass through us and move on. But just to be safe, in an abundance of caution, effective in 5 days, we are going to take our entire course schedule at Long Beach City College and we're going to move all of it online in 5 days. The complimentary close there was "Have a nice day" or something like that, right? Okay. Now, after a few moments of abject panic, because guess what? I had never taught an online course in my life. Happily, I figured it out. But as we began those days, and I was teaching, I think, 7 classes that were all previously fully in-person classes on our main campus, to teaching them instead on this new fancy automated thing that we'd never seen before called Zoom. And suddenly all of our classes were online and were synchronous, meaning that we had our classes met on the same days and times that they normally did, but they were completely on Zoom. But what's more, what made it even more challenging, I guess, was the fact that because of federal privacy laws, my students, and for a lot of other very good reasons, my students were allowed to keep their cameras off during class. And so for what ended up being, I think, 3 semesters, I was teaching to a screen to a bunch of black boxes on a screen. Occasionally, a student or two would, I think, feel bad for me and would turn their cameras on, so I at least had someone I could visualize, I could directly talk to. But, going to school online and really conducting all of your life online from your home or wherever you were was a new and frightening experience that just created all kinds of havoc for myself and for my students. And as part of all of that, I realized the need to communicate with my students much more often through email, through the campus messaging system, that sort of thing. They needed reassurance. They needed to know that even though we weren't in our usual on-campus space, I was still there for them. And I was concerned for them, and not just for whether or not they passed my class, though that would be nice, but that I cared about all aspects of them. And so I realized I needed to develop kind of a standard close to all of my messaging to my students. And I thought back to 3rd grade and the complimentary close. And I thought, it didn't work. I mean, think about it. You're talking in these unprecedented times about really challenging things. How do you end it? Have a nice day. Take care. Sincerely yours. Doesn't cut it. And so what I realized is that rather than a complimentary close, I needed to develop what I like to call an affirmative close. And part of it, I won't share all of it with you until the end, but the very end of my affirmative close was simply this: you are not alone. Because if my students, and really most all of us in society at the time, we were confronting an epidemic that in some ways was bigger than COVID. And that was a contemporary epidemic of loneliness. It impacted all ages and all demographic groups. And it had many and varied causes, though of course the lockdown, coupled with the rise and dominance of social media at that same time, were the prime movers. Because let's face it, for most of us, social media, online communications were about all we had to keep in touch with others. And it became very ironic in the sense that we are today the most connected and plugged in generations in Western history. And yet, so many of us are profoundly lonely. And kind of continuing on with this theme of, our consumption and sometimes our overconsumption of social media, we see 2 really important manifestations of this that are just so profoundly damaging. I see it in my students. I see it in a lot of other people that I just know in other aspects of my life. I see it sometimes in myself. One of those is a concept that you may have heard of, an acronym that the kids like to use, right? FOMO, fear of missing out. So that if you're not, constantly scrolling through your various social media news feeds to see what amazing things your friends, your real friends, or just the people that you know or have seen kind of friends are doing, you're missing out. You're somehow losing important experiences. And related to FOMO is a concept that I talk about to my students all the time in the mass media portion of my Intro to American Government class. It's a concept that was originated by a social scientist by the name of Linda Stone, and she calls it continuous partial attention. And here's how she defines it. Continuous partial attention describes how many of us use our attention today. It is different from multitasking. It is motivated by a desire to be a live node on the network. Another way of saying this is that we want to connect and be connected. We want to effectively scan for opportunities and optimize for the best opportunities, activities, and contacts in any given moment. And here's the part that hits hard. To be busy, to be connected, is to be alive, to be recognized, and to matter. We pay continuous partial attention in an effort not to miss anything. It is an always-on, anywhere, anytime, any place behavior that involves an artificial sense of constant crisis. We are always in high alert when we pay continuous partial attention. And that's Stone's take on it. And certainly, this phenomenon of continuous partial attention, and I see it on campus every day, and I all too often see it myself, can attach us so completely and consistently to our smartphones that we tend to kind of awkwardly drift through our daily activities, sometimes even sacrificing genuine, real, face-to-face contact to not miss the latest happening or meme on social media. In short, we are unable to truly live in the present. What we think might help to somewhat lessen our sense of loneliness flares it up to an amazing degree, along with a lot of anxiety and stress and uncertainty. And this is a pervasive problem that we deal with today. And don't worry, we'll talk about solutions at the end. But for now, here's the thing. If you've heard of these concepts talked about in mass media these days, the contemporary crisis in loneliness is always portrayed as being something new, something especially severe, rampant, and profound. But guess what? Loneliness has always been a hallmark of Western societies, going all the way back to the time of the ancient Greek philosophers. And I'm going to be quoting extensively from a wonderful article that I came upon, literally stumbled upon not too long ago, by a guy by the name of Randy Woodley, who is both a member of the Cherokee Nation and is also Distinguished Professor of Faith and Culture Emeritus at the Portland Seminary. And Woodley describes a phenomenon that goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks, and that has literally been baked into all aspects of Western civilization, societies, institutions, cultures, and our own individual mindset. It's called Platonic dualism. And here's what he says. Here's how Platonic dualism worked on us to achieve a false state of the possibility of being alone. Platonic dualism taught us that the mind is superior to the body and other physicalities such as nature. This teaching that eventually became our Western reality led us on a path of ranking various aspects of our existence in hierarchies. If our reality was mind over matter, thinking above doing, the ethereal over the material, then everything in life could be ranked in hierarchies. This new reality always ranked human beings over the rest of creation. It justified a mentality of extraction from creation as opposed to living with creation in a symbiotic relationship. After nearly 3,000 years of influence from Platonic dualism, we may feel the pressure to think that we are alone. That's because this harmful philosophy, now a Western life way, has created a sense of superiority over all of our non-human relatives. Platonic dualism deeply affected the Western Church as well, creating an emphasis on doctrine and a lack of accountability to ethics and actions. Overall, Western Christian theologies became disembodied. It became more important in life to give assent to correct doctrine than to reflect the character of Jesus in everyday life. And he goes on to say that he blames Platonic dualism for splitting reality for the Western worldview. And he says, the reason for my accusation comes with a comparison because indigenous people around the world who are not affected as severely by the Western worldview do not have this split in reality. By and large, indigenous people understand the physical, material world to be essential to and equally part of our whole reality. Indigenous people have no hierarchy of humanity over the rest of creation. We understand that we all, humans and the rest of the whole community of creation, have equal purpose. In other words, despite the reality of Platonic dualism that has been baked into us, we are never alone. Woodley goes on to say, in many societies, especially indigenous societies, our oldest stories speak of animals talking amongst themselves. Sometimes they even talk with humans and allow humans to get to know them. These stories speak of a relationship built on equity, with each species having a role to play. All beings are vital for the cooperation of harmony in the community of creation. One such story is found in the book of Genesis in the Hebrew Bible, which brings us to our first inspirational reading. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl in the air, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called every living creature, that was its name. And Adam gave names to all cattle, to all fowl in the air, and to all wild beasts. But for Adam there was not found a helper who was equal to him. Notice a couple of things there. First, you can clearly see the influence of Platonic dualism in the last phrase of verse 20. But for Adam, there was not found a helper who was equal to him. Here's my question. Is finding an equal helper truly necessary to live in a world of cooperation and harmony with the earth and all of nature? Also, doesn't the requirement of a relationship of equals, in a sense, falsely elevate romantic love to the detriment, to the expense of every other type of love that is possible in this world? Whether it is Platonic love, Plato keeps coming back to things. Whether it's Platonic love or agape love or anything like that. So many of us pursue romantic love in such a relentless, tireless way, trying to find the one, that we ignore all the other multiple possibilities of love that surround us. And all too often, we're disappointed. In addition, it should be noted that most more traditional interpretations of this passage emphasize that God has essentially appointed Adam, and by extension, humans in general, as stewards of the earth and of all life upon it. This stewardship, however, as it's actually evolved in Western history, is a wholly exploitive one, grounded in hierarchy, mastery, and the use of Earth's resources for the sole benefit of humanity. And in talking about this passage from Genesis, Woodley reminds us, quote, "Creator, great mystery," I love that, "Creator, great mystery is urging the animals to understand their relationship with the rest of creation and to realize that they are not alone, but exist within a great community of creation. In Creator's purview, everyone has a purpose and is worth knowing. We are not above or below the rest of the community of creation. We are simply a part of it. But our role, that of caretakers, of co-sustainers, is vital." But happily, we have some constructive challenges to this really dominant notion of Platonic dualism. And this takes me back, again, it's Memory Day today. This takes me back to me as a high school sophomore in 1980. And back then, I knew nothing of Platonic dualism or of the equitable and harmonious wisdom of the indigenous worldview, but I did know something about feelings of persistent loneliness and anxiety. I was also quite a nerd. Not that any of you would guess that, right?
No.
No, of course not. Or my preferred terminology to nerd is academic enthusiast. That is a wonderful term that I picked up from one of my daughter Kari's favorite Disney Channel shows growing up, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Featured two identical twin brothers. One was a nerd. The other thought he was cool, but really wasn't. And one time when the supposedly cool brother was bagging on the nerd brother, kept calling him a nerd, he said, "Please, my community and I prefer the term academic enthusiast." I love that. I wear that label proudly. But besides being an academic enthusiast, what's more, in my elementary, middle, and high school years, I was quite the science nerd, and even more specifically, a space nerd. So imagine my heartfelt but geeky excitement when I heard that the astronomer and planetary scientist Carl Sagan had developed this amazing 13-part series on public television called Cosmos. The promos that I saw for the series indicated this series was to be all about the exploration of space, which was right down my street. But it turned out to be so much more. The series, if you've never seen it, and by the way, it's available from the streamers, so check it out. The series was an intellectual and cultural tour de force that addressed space exploration for sure, but also a sweeping view of the history of Western civilization, philosophy, culture, theology, and even a healthy dash of futurism. It was true destination television. Anybody remember that phrase?
Yes.
Especially for an educational enthusiast like teenage me. And it also helped me realize that I was truly never alone. In the very first episode of Cosmos, Carl Sagan reminds us that all life and matter in the universe is composed of elements emanating from the Big Bang, not the comedy of the same name. Thus, Sagan said, we are all made of what he called star stuff. And while my still developing teenage brain didn't completely see it at the time, Sagan was attempting to repair the split reality in the Western worldview that Woodley was describing earlier through a transcendent combination of art, music, and the philosophy of science. For Carl Sagan, we are all made of star stuff. And as such, all life in the universe is fundamentally connected, fundamentally moving towards unity. And let's face it, that message is right down our street here at Sandia Church. We wholeheartedly embrace the core belief of most world religions that love is the primary building block and motive force of everything in the universe. If love is thus star stuff, then we, along with everything else in the universe, are made of love. And if we are all made of love, and we are also fundamentally connected to the earth, plants, animals, planets, and everything else in the universe, if this all is so, how can we ever be alone? And as star stuff, we exist in a loving relationship of equality with all other star stuff. And again, through all of this, there is a natural movement in the universe towards unity. And this was the message that was asserted both so lyrically and transcendently in our musical meditation from earlier this morning. In case you didn't get to hear all the words, the stars will open up and all will be tiny pieces of galaxy reflected in you and me. Cells, planets, same thing. Bright electric lights on all the leaves and everything growing from a tree. Water's blood and roots are veins. I don't know you, but I like you. I don't know you, but I miss you. I don't know you, but I need you. The smallest is the biggest thing, and in all the world, the love is the love from me to you. And I should tell you a little bit more about this piece because it really does show what was on the mind of the composer when she originally wrote this. The composer Erica Lloyd, who, by the way, is a genre-breaking composer and performer, created the choral version of this piece. It was originally written as a piece of popular music, but she created a choral version specifically for the amazing group that you may have heard previously, Chanticleer. And the thing that ties all of this together is the fact that the world premiere of Chanticleer's version of Cells, Planets was done online during the COVID lockdown. And it was done using this amazing virtual choir software that you may have seen was pioneered by another favorite choral composer of mine, Eric Whitaker. And that piece, it set the world ablaze with hope, not despair, not anxiety, not loneliness. It helped listeners realize that even in a time of unprecedented physical isolation and loneliness, we are never alone, and that we can still raise our collective voices in sublime joy and appreciation of our unity and our shared ancestry as star stuff. But Sagan wasn't done there. In the very last episode of Cosmos, entitled Who Speaks for Earth, he examines the future of humanity and wonders aloud, who would speak for the planet if we were to meet extraterrestrial life? To help provide context, Sagan leads viewers on a wide-ranging journey through history, including the meeting between the Tlingit people and the explorer Jean-Francois de la Pérouse, as well as the destruction of the Aztecs by the Spanish conquistadors. I mean, it goes through history at a breakneck pace. But in the end, Sagan proposes the best hope for humanity to avoid nuclear destruction, because remember, 1980, we were still in the midst of the Cold War. The best hope for humanity to avoid nuclear destruction and to continue its journey through the cosmos is by cherishing life and moving towards greater unity. And this, of course, this inexorable movement towards unity brings us to our second inspirational reading. As Ernest Holmes says, modern science tends towards a teaching of unity, tends to resolve the material universe into a physical universe, and the physical universe into energy. The tendency of modern thought is to return by the route of inductive science to the great spiritual deductions of the ages, that all is one. But men are still puzzled, trying to reconcile the world of multiplicity, the objective world of many things, to their belief in the final necessity of unity. Every great spiritual leader has known that God is one, not two. They have also known that evil exists in the world. What we mean by evil is apparent limitation, poverty, sickness, death, and what we call sin, which is nothing more than a mistake. We observe in creation atomic intelligence, then a simple consciousness, after which comes a personal consciousness, then a cosmic consciousness. These variations of consciousness are definitely defined and accepted by most investigators. As we watch the transition from the atomic to the simple intelligence, from the simple to the personal, from the personal to the cosmic, we find that we are merely going up a scale of unity. The spirit is not something apart from matter, so-called, but is something working through matter, working through star stuff. The potential possibility of what we call the highest and lowest is inherent in everything. They are not different things. They are the same thing functioning at different levels. So, we now understand the foundation of the loneliness that all of us have felt at some point in our lives. We understand its origins. We understand there are alternative viewpoints, and we should embrace those alternative viewpoints. But how do we move forward in a practical way? Here's a few suggestions to connect or reconnect with all the star stuff that surrounds you every day and grow in this irresistible movement towards unity. First off, remember that concept of continuous partial attention that we started with? Well, and this is a suggestion that I give to my students in every class, every semester. To try to begin to liberate yourself from continuous partial attention by planning regular times to put your phone down and out of sight if necessary, and engage in activities that help to ground you in the present moment and reconnect you with all of the star stuff that exists around you. Start small, even if it's just 15 minutes at a time. Log out, unplug, and do something that gives you genuine joy. Take a walk with your dog if you have one. Connect with someone in a face-to-face conversation. Or simply sit in nature and just be one with the beauty that surrounds you in that moment. As time goes on, grow the size, the length, the extent of your social media breaks, and just be. Be present. Be in the moment. Now I will put my phone away again. Also, consider to begin pushing back against the polarization and otherizing that has become so very common in this historical moment. How can you do that? By connecting or reconnecting with someone whose philosophies and beliefs are fundamentally different from your own. And if you need a how-to guide, I've got one for you. One of my favorite, and I hate to admit to having an online obsession, but it is this wonderful website for the TED Foundation. Don't know if any of you have ever seen that. And they have absolutely free, translatable recordings of every TED Talk and TEDx talk that has ever been given. Boy, is it habit forming. So don't go crazy, but But one, I would suggest going to the TED website and in the search function, type in this phrase, take the other, in quotes, to lunch. Take the other to lunch. This is a wonderful TED Talk by Elizabeth Lesser from 15 years ago that I have shown to all of my classes in that time. And actually, I give my students a number of semester-long project options. And one of them is to go ahead, watch the video, and then carry it out. Have lunch or coffee with someone either that you know or you are acquainted with who has a diametrically opposed worldview to your own. And Lesser takes you through it step by step, gives you some ground rules to follow, gives you some questions to start off with. And you would be amazed with what can happen. As happened to Lesser herself the first time she did this, and she went to lunch with someone who was her polar opposite in any view that you could possibly imagine. And when they were done, they both marveled at the fact that they had, in the end, much more in common with each other than what divided them. And countless of my students have found that same thing. I'm so happy with that project because I've had a number of instances when students have reconciled with parents that they had previously reached a parting of the ways with. One student and parent in particular, the student came out to their parents and they kicked them out of their house. And they bravely followed this process. And not only did they get an A on the project, but they reconciled with their parents. Sorry, that always... Take a breath. Okay. So, take the other to lunch, or coffee, or on a walk. In real time, live, in person, face to face. Another option, discover or rediscover a third place and jump in with both feet. Now, what is a third place? This is a term coined by an American sociologist by the name of Ray Oldenburg. He wrote a book about this. I highly recommend it. And a third place for Oldenburg refers to public spaces like cafes, bars, libraries, churches, and the like, where people gather informally outside of their first place, which is home, or their second place, which is work, to socialize and build community. Now, simply by virtue of you being here right now, I know that all of you, to one degree or another, are enmeshed in a very important third place, a very important beloved community. But expand your horizons or dig in even more deeply here at the Sandia Church. The classic example that Oldenburg gives in his book, a reference that everyone can relate to, was Cheers, that old TV series, right? Where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. Doesn't have to be a bar, though. For my own parents, their third place for about, over 10 years was a wonderful outdoor cafe in the city of San Clemente that no longer exists, sadly. And for all that time, they would go every day, purportedly for breakfast. Breakfast would often bleed into lunch. And they developed this informal group of about anywhere from 10 to 15 other people, all also mostly retired folks. And they would gather and they would eat and they would sip coffee. After a while, a couple of them would bring their ukuleles and they would spontaneously spring into song. It was an amazing thing to walk into the patio of this place and hear all these voices raised in song, not because they have to, but because it brought them joy. It was a true third place. I urge you to find yours. One other suggestion before I wrap things up. Always be willing to act, to help, to assist those in marginalized communities. We know so many people today who are under attack for who they are, where they came from, how they see themselves, or who they love. And you can do this through direct service, working with a community-based organization that inspires you, like, for example, the Foothill Unity Center. Or by getting involved with informal or formal mutual aid networks. There are so many folks, so many other pieces of star stuff that need us, that don't know us, but they like us, that don't know us, but they need us. Get involved. And that is getting me to my affirmative close. Not my complimentary close. I mean, you're all wonderful, beautiful people. That goes without saying. But the full close that I give to my students, I've been doing so both in print, online, in person, for the last 5 years, every time. You are beloved. You are enough. You are not alone. We let it be. And so it is. Amen.
Amen. See, it was so good.
This is now our time for sharing. Will the ushers please come forward? Through our gifts, selflessly given, we enter into the great flow of universal abundance and plenty. And according to our gifts, we are blessed and kind. Please take your offering in your hands and repeat our affirmation twice with me. God, you are the source of all my good. With love and gratitude, I give my gift back to you. God, you are the source of all my good. With love and gratitude, I give my gift back to you. All right.
Okay, y'all, what did you think?
because he is brilliant and sweet and deep. Yeah, that's what we're working on, huh? We're working on that. We're trying to make that a thing. I was supposed to sing, I knew 2 weeks ago, I was supposed to sing Wade in the Water. And at the conference this last week, which you'll hear more about next week, there was this woman, her name is Cerise, and you're going to want to write this down. Her name is Cerise, C-E-R-I-S-E, Patron, P-A-T, like the tequila, Patron. She's a beautiful speaker and singer, and she just released her first album, and she did a talk at the conference, which she used this song, and of course she sang it, and I said, girl, how am I going to get up there and sing after you did what you just did with it? And she said, you're going to. The point of her talk was, are we doing what we believe? As people who are new thought, are we doing it? And I think, Paul, you took it in a whole new direction. And there was something that was revealed to me yesterday as I got like one last walk-in before we had to catch our flight. I walked the lever. And I thought I'd had every insight that was going to come. But no, I got one I was not comfortable with, which I'm still learning to become comfortable with. And that is that I'm not allowed to hide anymore. I was one of the people who were really comfortable in COVID. I could just not. I gotta wade in the water. I gotta not close the windows and accidentally on purpose forget where my phone is. And get out in the world, and I think we all do. Because if cells and planets are the same thing, if we're all stardust, then we're also all the ocean. And we can sit and think that we're a drop of water and hide, or we can get out in it and teach the world that we're an ocean. So here's my commitment to do that. Thank you, Paul, for driving that home for me. Paul and I are simpatico, and we are a team. And we're going to make this happen. So, think about wading in the water as I go into the offertory. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who's that yonder dressed in red? Wade in the water. Must be the children that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who's that yonder dressed in white? Wade in the water. Must be the children of the Israelite. Oh, God's gonna trouble the water. Yeah. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. That's Carrie wading in the water. Who's that yonder dressed in blue? Wade in the water. Must be the children that coming trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. I'm finding my in. I know I missed the coda. Give me a nod when we're where I need to come in, because I'm lost. There we go. Thank you. You don't believe we're all redeemed. Wade in the water. Just see the Holy Spirit working through me. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. We're gonna wade different now.